Hey kids, Dad here. It is Friday, May 29, 2026. It is a beautiful, beautiful Friday. It's 12:30 in the afternoon. I just got back in from an 8-mile run. Thought I'd give you a little recording before I jump in a cold shower here. Gratitude. Today, who's next on our list? Let's talk about Greg Woolfill. Greg Woolfill. He is a guy I met last fall. No, not last fall. Sorry, I'm still brain fog from running out in this heat. Met him in the fall of 2023. Shortly after, I had to leave the family home. So I mentioned before how Michelle was one of those ladies who gifted me a whole bunch of household furnishings. Well, I would have never met her without Greg. I was at a project management professional leadership conference kind of thing. It was like an after work, a little 2-hour conference. Somebody pointed me in that direction because they said, hey, there's this guy speaking tonight. You should go check him out. He was a veteran talking about mental health stuff. Well, that person was Nick Ron of Warriors Next Adventure. And Nick was obviously, he's been pivotal in my life. Like there's whole other videos dedicated to Nick. But I remember sitting in that conference room and I heard Nick speak for about 2 hours on mental health for veterans. And I was in a very dark place because at that moment, I was still going back to that empty apartment, sleeping on a sleeping bag in the middle of the floor with nothing but a suitcase and a sleeping bag. And I saw in the back of the room after the conference, Nick was had all these people around him thanking him for coming, blah, 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 the whole crowd. I didn't want to approach him, but I just kind of stood back, and there's this bald guy back there. And I just introduced myself to him and said, hey, I'm Ryan, who are you? And he says, oh, I'm Greg. I'm like, oh, are you in project management? He says, no, I'm just here to support Nick, because he was a friend of Nick's. Well, ended up talking to Greg about project management a little bit, and I think Greg was looking for work at the time. Greg ended up asking me a little bit about me, and I may have said something or another about how, I'm struggling, but I'm hanging in there kind of thing. And Greg then was going to pull Nick aside and said, Nick, you gotta talk to this guy. So Greg introduced me to Nick. That's all Greg did in that moment. He was just nice enough to shake my hand, chat with me a little bit, let me chat with him a little bit. And then he said, he had a little aha moment to say, oh, this guy should really talk to Nick. I bet Nick could help this guy out. Sometimes that's all it takes. It's just an introduction. You meet a stranger and you just say, oh, I bet this person and that person might really get along. Introduce them. So I credit Greg with the reason I know Nick, the reason I ended up meeting Michelle, on and on down the chain. At the same time, a couple days later after meeting Greg, he came by my apartment. He had his truck, a couple of things, a couple of small little household items that were desperately needed at the time, because again, I had nothing. And then we went out for dinner and went for Mexican food in Egan for dinner. And I thought it was odd that Greg didn't drink, because I had 2 beers with dinner. That was normal for me, right? But Greg didn't drink. I thought that was odd. Should have been a warning sign for me. But we ended up talking about just jobs, careers. And at that time, having somebody, another man, who I could just sit and have a dinner with, meant a lot. Meant a whole lot. But for me, Greg made my list because he was looking out well enough for another human being to recognize in that moment that I was somebody who may need some help. Even though I didn't say it. I didn't go up to him and say, hey, hi, what's your name? I'm Ryan. I need help. I was too proud for that. But somehow, whether it was in my eyes or my voice or maybe just the little bit that I did share, Greg was smart enough to recognize and to read, I think this guy could use some help right now. And That's what started just that chain reaction to Nick, to Michelle, to on and on down the chain. I'll get to more people down the road here. So today I'm grateful for Greg, the lesson he taught me, and just being considerate of others, connecting them with people who you think you can help them, pairing them up, making that little love connection, making those introductions, and how far that can go to changing the trajectory of someone's life. So I love Greg. I get to see him every once in a while, not as much as I wish I did. Still chat with him pretty routinely, but he's an old retired Air Force guy. But I love him. I love you kids. Hope you kids have a fantastic, fantastic weekend. And we'll talk soon.